Story 1: The car that didn't pass. This happened when I was driving home late from work. It was around 12:30 a.m. and the highway was mostly empty. About 10 minutes into the drive, I noticed headlights behind me. They weren't close. They weren't aggressive. They were just there. I didn't think much of it until I realized they'd been behind me for over 20 minutes. Same distance, same speed. I changed lanes. They changed lanes. I slowed down slightly. They slowed down too. That's when my phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. It said, "You don't need to turn off your lights." My headlights were still on. I checked. A few seconds later, the headlights behind me turned off. Completely. But I could still see the shape of the car following me. I didn't stop until I reached my driveway. When I looked back, the road was empty. The next morning, I checked my phone records. There was no number, just the message. Story 2. The upstairs footsteps. I used to live in a small apartment building, only 4 units. Mine was on the ground floor. Every night around 2 a.m., I'd hear footsteps above me, slow, measured. I assumed it was my upstairs neighbor, until one night I ran into him in the parking lot. I casually mentioned the noise. He looked confused. He told me he worked night shifts and wasn't home most nights. That same evening, the footsteps started again. This time, they stopped directly above my bedroom. Then came something worse. Dragging, like furniture being pulled slowly across the floor. I went upstairs and knocked on his door. No answer. The door was locked. The building manager later told me the upstairs apartment had been empty for almost 2 months. I moved out shortly after. Story 3. Typing. My girlfriend was staying at her parents' place for the weekend. We were texting late at night when she suddenly sent, "Did you hear that?" I asked what she meant. No reply, but the chat showed typing. For a long time. Then she sent, "It's getting closer." I called her immediately. She answered, half asleep. She said she hadn't sent any messages. I asked her to check her phone. She went quiet. Then she asked me, "Why does it say you're typing right now?" I wasn't. I watched my screen. It still said typing, even after we hung up. Story 4. The passenger seat. I drove rideshare part-time. One night I accepted a pickup from a quiet street. The app showed 1 passenger. When I arrived, no one was outside. I waited. Then my back door opened and closed. I assumed someone got in. I started driving. A few seconds later, the rear seatbelt warning turned on. I looked in the mirror. The seat was empty. I pulled over immediately. Before I could exit the car, my phone buzzed. The ride had ended. 5-star rating. With one message, "Thanks for not turning around," I stopped driving after that. Story 5. The last knock. I live alone. One night, I heard a knock on my door. Just one. I checked the peephole. No one there. 10 minutes later, another knock. Same rhythm. My phone buzzed with a notification from my apartment app. Front door opened. The timestamp matched the first knock. I opened my door carefully and looked down the hallway. At the far end, someone was standing still, facing the wall, not moving. I closed my door and locked it. The next morning, building management told me no one had been in the hallway at that time. But my door camera showed 2 knocks. The second one came from inside the building. I don't know what connects these stories. Maybe nothing. Maybe coincidence. But everyone who experienced them said the same thing afterward. It wasn't the fear that stayed with them. It was the feeling that something noticed them and chose not to finish what it started. If you enjoy realistic horror stories like these, subscribe to Mr.Dreadline here on YouTube. And follow Mr.Dreadline on TikTok for short horror stories and live storytelling. But only if you're comfortable listening to things that don't have explanations. Because some stories don't end when the video does. They wait.